Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Sat Sangat Ji, Appa Sara Ek Parvar Hega. And because there's only one projector working, it might be nice if everyone from that side of the darbar comes to this side so they can see the projector. The benefit is that there's going to be a number of models that will help describe what we're talking about. So if you want to come and sit this side, but please make sure you can see the screen. So Maharaj Kripa Nal, we're getting time again as a parvar, as Sanjogis, and as a Satsangat to come together to talk about Gurbani Vichar again. Yesterday, we talked about understanding the Kale and building on top of some of the Vichar and Akath Katha that Bhai Deputy Singh was talking about. So he discussed more around understanding the Kale, who am I and what game am I playing. So inside that, we tried to understand what are we bringing into this darbar, how did we turn up today? And this is a very important part of Simran. So before we go on to today's session, we're going to talk about yesterday slightly, just a slight recap, especially some Sangat weren't here yesterday, so we'll do a little bit of recap over yesterday, and then we'll go deeper into some of the concepts we talked about yesterday. So when we talked about yesterday, we talked about how we're all one parvar, how we've not just turned up by coming to the Gurdwara today, we've come from many, many, many life forms together, and we've had pyar with one another. We've had shown love to each other, and that's why we're here today. We also talked about how Guru Maharaj himself calls the Sangat together, and that's why we're all here talking about his Gurbani, talking about his Simran. So now that we are here, it's up to us how we turned up. So yesterday we went into a little bit more detail around we come into the darbar as our body, and we come in as our mind. Whether they're together or they're separate is up to us. And we also talked about how in some cases they should be together, in some cases they should be apart. So the body was something that was awarded to us for doing good deeds, for helping each other, because we're all Sanjogi, we're not meeting today, we're meeting before as well. So we all helped each other in some shape or form, which gave us this body. We also helped each other enough that Waheguru said, actually, I want them to meet again. So we've done some type of good deed in our past life. And the body is a place, the reason why this body is so important is this body is the body where Waheguru himself will come and sit inside. So Waheguru, if we do the things that Waheguru wants, Waheguru himself will come and sit inside this body with us. We also talked about the mind, and we talked about the mind being a Jyot Swarup. So it's a Prakash Roop, it's itself light, and it's the same Jyot as Waheguru. So between us and Waheguru, there's no difference as long as we realize that we are that Jyot Swarup. We also talked about the different words given to Man. So Man being in an enlightened stage becomes Jyot Swarup. Man, when it's moving between like one area of the mind of thinking to another area, like from Sattvagun to Rajagun, it becomes a Surti, it's moving. We talked about how we apply our Buddh, how we apply intellect. We talked about all of these things, and the name of the mind changes. So when you hear Gurumukhs talking about the mind, they use these words interchangeably, so it's very important to know what these words mean and when they're applying it. So, and yesterday we also talked about how do we bring the two together? So how do we have this body? How do we have this mind? We all turned up to the darbar. We all turned up in different ways, but can we all together come together? So we talked about some guided Simran. So we started to put our dhyan on our mouth to get our mouth to start to say Waheguru. Put our dhyan on our ears, so our ears started listening to our own mouth, to our own sound. And then we started putting our dhyan just out here and holding it. So we're getting in control, getting used to the fact that we're controlling the mind's not controlling us anymore. So that was a bit about yesterday. We also talked about one other concept, which was how do we spend our breath? This is a bit of a heavy slide, but the reason why this slide is very important is if we spend our swas in any of these areas, so Rajagun or Tamogun or Satogun, Kaya Teri Sab Maya, all of this is Maya. So if we spend any of our time in any of these areas, we're also inside Maya. And I won't go into the detail of each one now. We're going to deep dive into each one in just a moment. But what we came to realize is these 5 red dots, one is Kal, the other one's Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, and Hankar. If all of these own Bhavsagar, if all these own Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, then where is this place? Where does it start? Where does it stop? And if I'm not supposed to be here, even Sattvagun, if I'm not even supposed to be in Sattvagun, where am I supposed to be? So that's what we're going to just try to look at today. So yesterday about understanding the Kale, these are the 2 concepts, how we turn up with our body and our mind. We also talked about the Kale, that's the understanding element at a high level. Today we're going to actually talk about how do we play the game when we recognize the mind is in Tamagun, when we recognize the mind is in Rajagun. How do we play the game? How do we understand our own natural state? So these are things we're going to explore today. And then tomorrow, we're going to look at how do we keep this state. So we're all spending time together as a parivar. We're all spending time to learn about Sikhi, about the Juktis for Simran. How do we maintain it once the camp's finished? Yeah? What is the state that we need to be in to maintain it? So that's tomorrow. But today, we want to play the game. We want to know, how do I play this game? So it's very important, Bhai Sahib's mentioned this a couple of times today, where is Bhavsagar? Bhavsagar exists between the Turkutti. Turkutti is essentially between the eyes. This is a barrier. This is a barrier locked by Pon. Yeah, so the lock is made of air. And the other barrier is your belly button, Nabbi. So there's a lot of emphasis on the Nabbi. So the Turkutti is the barrier between us and Bhavsagar and the Mokti hut, the 4th state. And also the body that exists between this has 9 doors and 5 senses. So we talked about Karma Indriya. So these are where the Panch Jor and Kal try to get as much knowledge from the world as possible to start to give you thoughts. Oh, you just felt something here. Oh, it's a bit of air went across my neck. Oh, I have to start thinking about this. So any senses, that all becomes part of the thoughts that Kal will give you. So this is the game which we play. So where is Bhavsagar? Where are those areas? So Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun are essentially in between these 2 barriers. So knowing where they start and stop is super important to know if I'm supposed to be out of here, where is out? Where is out of here? So in Gurbani, it talks about these 2 Siriyas. So do Siriya ke aap swami, kille bigse antarjami. So these 2 points are Kal's playground. This is where Kal is given full hukum that this is all your area. Whenever my Gurmukh, my Jyot comes into this area, you have to keep them busy. Keep them inside vichar, keep them inside thoughts. So the 5 elements all exist inside this area. The 3 huts that we're seeing here, they exist in this area. And the whole physical world that we see, remember we talked about breaking up, where is Kal? Whether you see it in our mum or our dad or our family or the community or society, all of this is inside these 2 areas. So a Gurmukh, when they come into this area, their job is to maintain this, keep it clean, keep the safai inside this area. Don't get too dirty. Yeah. Even the Gurus, when the Gurus came and they lived inside Kal Yug, even they were doing Simran to maintain the cleanliness when they were in Bhavsagar. Even they had to do Simran. So if they had to do Simran, we must be doing Simran. You know? So what we want to do now is zoom really deep into each one of these areas, Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun, to really understand how to identify myself if I'm inside this area. And what's the jukti I use if I identify myself as being in Sattvagun? So an Auntie Ji was asking today, how do I know my Simran has stopped? Bhai Sahib talks about when you're doing Simran, slowly, that Simran will stop. And then you put your dhyan in a certain location and you hope to, at that point, you hear the Shabads. So this juktis that we're going to talk about, this levels of maturity between Tamogun all the way to Sattvagun, have different juktis, and essentially the Simran will go inside via these same juktis. You'll start to see it. So let's look at each one, and with each slide we're going to do that practical type of Simran as well. So In Tamogun is considered the heaviest anchor. So this is the one where if you're inside Tamogun, your natural or normal state, your nature, is to be magnetized to indulgence, magnetized to laziness, anger, ego. These are the ways you identify yourself. Yeah? You are spiritually blind because the Panchjot don't want you to think about Gurbani, don't want you to think about the Khel. Ideally, you don't know that there's a Khel happening. So they want you to have your natural state of unaware of all of this. And the trap is, Gal makes these vices seem very normal. This is the way life is. There's no such thing as Sikhi. There's no such thing as Dharam. There's no such thing as Sach. There's no such thing as Khel. There's no such thing as Amrit. All is made up. So what Gal tries to do is enforce that this is the normal way of life. There's no such thing other than Tamogun. This is where you should be. So people will identify themselves with that ego. I'm a CEO, I'm a executive, this is who I am. And when they lose those titles, they fall apart very quickly. So we have to make sure we identify, where are we? So the driver inside Tamogun is ego. And this is a very clear ego that other people can see. Other people can see this is clearly this person's got a lot of ego, a lot of homme inside them. You can recognize it from a physical perspective. So yesterday we also talked about when you're in Satogun, Rajagun or Tamogun, the Panchjot, they change their roop. They want to change the way that they behave with you so that you don't know that they're controlling the game. So in this situation, when you're in Tamogun, they're the captor and you're the prisoner because they have you exactly where they want you. Now that you are their prisoner, they start to put jal over your senses. So these Gyan Indriya that give you, and Karma Indriya that give you senses, they all start to weather away. So the ears that are supposed to hear, the internal ears that are supposed to hear Shabad, they're caught. No more Shabad, you can't hear Shabad. This tongue that's supposed to be super pravitr and be able to taste Amrit, that's got jal on it as well. Can't taste Amrit. These eyes that are supposed to see such, right now everyone's seeing such. This is the physical roop of such, but I'm talking about the prakash roop of such, the light version of such. That jot, which is the same as yours, you can't see it because you are a captor. You are a prisoner and they have caught you already. In Gurbani, Guru Amar Das says, this Maya is so fascinating, because of it, people wonder and doubt. So we're so fascinated by this world that's being produced around us, we question, is there really anything else? Is this it? This is all of it. Like, there's not really anything. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. But when you talk to a Gurumukh, they say, I can see it, I can hear it, I can taste it, it's there, I can go there. So when we're in this condition of Tamogun, everyone goes to these conditions. No one is better, no one's worse. No one's kin agge, kin piche, some are further, some are closer. So no one's better, no one's judging anyone. What we're saying is, can you use this slide as a mirror to say, do I sometimes go to this place? And if I do go to this place, what is the jugati, what's the technique to get out? Those who've been in the camp for the past 2 days, you'll know that we've been using a jugati called Sas Gras Simran. Gavye, Suniye, Man Rakye, Pao. What that essentially means is, as you're speaking with your tongue, you're listening with your ears. And this one is talking about your physical tongue, your physical ears. Because what we're trying to do is, first of all, get the mind to sit where we're telling it to sit. So when we say why, we breathe in, we say why, and when we breathe out, we say gru, with every swas. We're not going to let one swas go. We're judged on every swas we take. We either take it and we control it, we put it into Satogun, or we send it back to Waiguru, or we spend it. We spend it on worries, desires, hopes, or any other thought we want. Both are up to us. Liv taat do raha hai, hukmi kar kamai. You do the kamai, whichever one you have prem for, whichever one you have love for, do that one, no problem. But we are all here as Satsangat because we have prem for such. We want to meet such. So now it's just about having the jugtis, having the techniques to go on that path. So let's try to do this jugti or Saskara Simran, which is physical. This one is because we're in Tamugun, because we're prisoners and we're being captured by the Panchdoot. This is why we do it loud, because prisoners are caught. Prisoners trying to break out. We're trying to break out of the prison. We do it loud at this stage. This is the first stage which we do. So we're going to try to do Simran as Saskaras, and then we're going to look at Rajogun, and what does the Jukti look like in Rajogun? How does it change? You know? So let's try this Jukti. Again, first of all, make sure everyone's comfortable. We don't want anyone to be physically in pain. If you need to sit against a wall, no judgment. If you need to sit on the bench at the back, no judgment. Whatever you want. If you need to stand, be cush. Just make sure you're happy where you are. So we're going to start, and we're going to do this Simran. Kar lo shuru. Why Guru, 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 why Guru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So when you know, or you recognize, remember if we're playing the game, we recognize where we are in the game. And you don't need someone else to tell you, you can tell by yourself once you have a little bit of the gyan. So we recognize we're in Tamogun. This is why we do loud, wah, gru, so that we can control the mind. The mind is like, it's called a man bacha, because it runs around. You have to catch it and say, do this is what I want you to do. But like we were speaking earlier, as you become more and more mature, that you're actually a prisoner being caught by the Panchjor, you move, you change. So you move from Tamogun to Rajogun. Rajogun is called the fire of restlessness and desire, ocean of fire. And this is where we are constantly being magnetized towards activities, ambition, attachment, restlessness, craving, constantly running after things. And we all see this. Anyone who's in a job will realize, or has Gristi Jeevan, has dependents, people that they're looking after, you realize very quickly that it's very hard to find space in your mind, because there's always something that requires your attention. There's always something that you need to look after. It's difficult at this stage when there's so many things requiring your attention to know the difference between what do I want and what do I need. Those two concepts are very important to understand as early in life as possible, because you could spend a lot of time thinking a want is actually a need. Yeah. So it's very important to start to be able to differentiate the two and start to understand what is inside Rajogun that keeps me going. So the trap inside Rajogun is that it keeps the mind constantly in motion. Someone's always saying there's some come to do. Someone's always saying there's some responsibility that you need to take care of. There always are. And I'm not saying run away from your responsibilities, but I'm saying we need to prioritize some of those responsibilities. We also need to understand what is the difference between a need and a want and a desire. So we're constantly chasing after things, acting on impulses, and looking for temporary fulfillment, because we don't know what is a lifelong fulfillment. Only your Simran, only your Bhakti can be lifelong, because that's the only thing that remains with the Jyot after you passed away. So this is interesting. The driver in Tamogun was ego, a very clear and identifiable ego that anyone can see. In here, this is more subtle and internal. And it's a chakra inside Rajogun that is localized and keeps you there. So Asha, Trishna, and Chinta. Asha, which is hopes and expectations, gives birth to Trishna, which is cravings. And Trishna invites Chinta, which is worry and anxiety. And that in itself intensifies the Asha, which is hopes and expectations. So you got this own little chakra inside Rajogun that keeps you there. So it's hard to come out. So it's a chakra that we're all playing. Everyone comes to Rajogun, whether you're a Gurmukh or whether you're Manmukh, everyone must come to Rajogun, because there's Gristi Jeevan inside there. So it's very important to understand, if we are coming to Rajogun, can we separate what is inside Hukum and what's outside Hukum? We know Tamogun is all outside Hukum. Rajogun has stuff that's inside Hukum and stuff that's outside Hukum. We need to be able to decipher through our Jeevan which is allowed, which one's not. But here again, like we mentioned earlier, the Panchjor, they don't want you to think you're captured here. They want you to think, actually, we're friends. So here in Gurbani, it talks about the Panchjor being farmers or friends, where they're like, oh, you got this piece of land, maybe you need next door's piece of land as well. You've grown this crop, what if you separated it in half, grow this crop that side, this crop that side? What if you did it by 4 and got all these other crops and then get even bigger business? So they're trying to be your friend. They're trying to give you these hopes and expectations that actually you should be doing all these other things. You should be thinking in these ways. Keep growing, keep doing. So we're actually in a society now where the only way that businesses operate is through growth. The only measurement for business is growth. What does that mean? The only method to evaluate value is how much did you grow this year compared to last year. So we're constantly chasing this expectation to keep delivering more and more and more and more, and resources are diminishing. We're seeing that around us. But this is the same with the resources inside us, the resource of our swas. So here, the Panchjor, they're still Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar have all changed their roop. It's hard to recognize. It's easier to recognize my captor, hard to recognize my friend. So in this scenario, we're getting a lot of worries and desires. So in Gurbani, Guru Arjan Dev Ji says, Sa sa simro gobind, man antar ki utri chint. So he talks about Jukti called Sa sa simran. So in this Jukti, what we're going to do, rather than scream out loud, wah, gru, where we're conditioning and hammering the mind, here, the mind's under our control. We have the option to go down live the rasta or tat the rasta. We have those options from Rajogun. So from here, we're going to slowly try to detach from the body and lean more into the Shabad. So more dhyan into the Shabad, but here we're going to whisper. So we're doing it lots lighter. We're not screaming, but we're trying to, again, bring our mind inside the body and listen to the sound that we're making, but we're whispering this time. We're not shouting, okay? So let's try this jukti called Sa Sa Simran, so we can get rid of our worries and anxiety. Kar lo shuru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So with this jukti, we're starting to put a lot less strain on the body. So we're not having to scream, we're not having to shout, we're not having to make sure our ears are listening, but we're also not at the stage where we're able to do it internally without any thoughts coming. So we're not there, here or there, we're in between, where we're doing it a little bit lighter, and we're allowing slowly, letting that surti, remember the moving mind, to come into the body. And some people, they'll do Simran that way, and slowly, they'll fall asleep. And that's not a problem. Falling asleep is a very, very good thing, and we'll show in a couple of slides away from here why falling asleep in the Simran, in that jukti, is a very good thing. So this jukti, this technique, is once we realize that we're starting to slowly control the mind, you know? So you can use these juktis anytime. You don't have to use them specifically when I'm now in Rajagun, I'm using now. You can use them anytime as you see fit. But we're just showing you a couple of juktis in context of scenarios. So the last one here, Satugun. So Satugun is the best area to be, where you're having empathy, contentment, righteousness, doing your dharam, you have good deeds, you're doing seva, all these good things happening in Satugun. However, it's called the chain of goodness. So why is it a chain if it's good? So the nature of a person that exists in Satugun is they're pure, they're righteous, but they're still ego-colored. And what that ego-colored means is all this righteous work we're doing is associated with this body, which is a kapra for the Jyot Swarup. It's just a temporary body. But what we've done is taken all that good kamai that we're doing and we've associated it with this body. So that's why it's the chain of goodness, because it's chained to this body. And this body is made of the 5 elements and will perish. This body's part of Gal's world. So the traps is that the actions are done with ego and attachment for recognition. They still bind the soul. So another concept that we see a lot of mindfulness happening, where we're saying, actually, put your dhyan here, put your dhyan here. And in mindfulness, we're doing it without the shabad. So in mindfulness, we're starting to control the body and starting to control the mind, which is a very good thing. Being able to sit still is a big thing. So mindfulness is not bad, but it's not sikhi. Because without naam, without the shabad, you can't meet such. You can do mindfulness, but that's a separate exercise from meeting such and doing it as the Gurbani says. So we got to understand, if you're doing mindfulness, very good, you can go to Satugun, but you can't progress higher. And we'll show in a couple of slides why. So there, the driver is a subtle type of ego. So the appearance is, I'm a good person, and that's the subtle ego talking. I give in charity, I do seva, and I do simran. But if it's done with identity of me, this body, it's done with ego. I'm a peaceful and detached person, but if naam is missing, you're still inside maya. Like we said, big difference between mindfulness and sikhi. So again, here now, Panch Dut, they don't want to be recognizable. Here, you've gone past being friends. You've gone past thinking about, oh, I want to grow, I want to keep creating things, past the desire. You're in Satugun. You're past all that. So the Panch Dut, they can't, them being there in Satugun as friends and farmers is not helpful. So here, they're spies. They're looking for the opportunity to bring you back to Rajagun or to Tamogun. And when we say spies, we don't play this game alone, like we talked about Sanjogis yesterday. We play this game together. So my brother might be doing Simran, and I'm burning. Why is he doing Simran? I'm getting upset. So when he stops doing Simran, I say, why are you doing Simran? Why are you making it so loud? Why are you doing all these things? So the spies can exist in other people and can exist in society that then can control you to say, actually, no, come away from Satugun. So the Panch Dut, they change their roop again, so you can't recognize them. But remember, they're inside you, they're controlling the mind. So here in Gurbani, we talk about bathing at the inner sacred shrine, cleansing through Naam, one who dies in the Shabad and merges in love and fear of the Lord. So bathing in the inner sacred shrine. So this is, Bhai Sahib was talking about, he talks about Mokti Hut, where you go even further than Satugun. You can't do that in mindfulness. And how you need the Naam to be able to get to that point. And we're talking about dying inside the Shabad. That's a different avastha. We can talk about that another time. But here, when you start to have a bit of control, you know you're in Satugun, you're doing seva but without ego. You should be doing seva without, the only way to do seva without ego is if your simran's going on internally and you're doing that seva. Yeah. So Bhai Sahib, when he was talking about it, he said, when people are doing seva with the good mantra, where they're saying Wah Guru, internally, Waheguru himself is judging you, not Chitragupta, not Dharmaraj. Yeah? So here we're going to try a different jukti called Antargat Simran. Inside this jukti, we're not going to attach ourselves to the breath. We're going to speak with our internal mind, our internal voice. So we've got internal sukham mouth, and internal ears are going to listen. So here, no one is moving, no need to move the body, so make sure you're comfortable first. Once you're comfortable, your internal voice speaks, your internal ears listen, and through this jukti, you slowly turn the body off. That's the aim. The aim is fall asleep, let the body go to bed, and the mind is supposed to awaken through the Shabad. And we'll show where does it awaken. Remember, if you're inside these areas, these huts, you're not allowed to be here. So where am I supposed to be? We'll look at that straight after. But for now, prerequisites, eyes must be closed. You must be able to, here in this example, not listening with your ears, listen to your internal ears. But to be able to go inside, eyes must be closed. Mouth is closed. So let's try to do Antargat Simran, where you're doing Simran inside, okay? Kar lo shuru. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So, now that we have a better understanding of these three huts that exist, this is where we're spending our time. This is where we've been spending our breath. It's important to know, how do I know if I'm in Satogun? How do I know physically, how can I tell if I'm in Satogun? How can I tell if I'm in Rajogun? How can I tell if I'm in Tamogun? So you heard Paisa, he talked a lot about the energy flow inside your body. So this energy flow is very, very important. It also helps you identify when your body actually changes depending upon whether you did Simran well or not. Your body physically will change. So here inside the body, let's talk about different things. So we know that here, the Turkutti and Nabbi, the bottom where your belly button is, these two are the boundaries of Bhavsagar. So on your right side, you have Ida, and on your left side, you have Pingala, and in the middle, you have Sukamana, Nadi. These are energy flows, and essentially, where you're seeing it says Satogun, that's Nabbi, that's your belly button, yeah? And below that's Rajogun, below that is the base where Kal sits. And above this, just above the Turkutti, is Mokdi hut. One more hut where you can spend your swas. So you had 3 huts, Satogun, Rajogun, Tamogun, and Mokdi hut. That's your home where the mind goes to every night. So it's important to know that you have these channels. But how do I know if I'm in the Ida channel or the Pingala channel? When you're breathing, the right side, that is Ida, where essentially you have Tamogun, yes? And on the left side, where you're breathing through the left side of your nostril more, that's Rajogun. If you're breathing and they're both imbalanced, you're either on Rajogun or you're on Tamogun, depending upon which side you're breathing from. If your breathing is balanced, you're in Satogun. So you can tell very quickly, where is my mind based upon this? So, and you can change it just by taking thoughts. It takes a bit of time to change. You take the thoughts and a little bit later, your breathing will start to change, but it will always change. So if we did Simran now for about 5-10 minutes, your breath will be balanced. You can breathe through your nostrils straight onto your hand. You'll feel, which side am I on? Am I breathing from my left, or am I breathing from my right? And this helps you identify where is my mind. But the question then is, where if you're inside Rajogun, Tamogun, Satogun, teri submaya, then the mind's been thrown out the body. The Panch Chor are now running the body. They're running the entire Khel because they've thrown you out. You're at work. You're at Tesco's. You're wherever they've sent you, you've gone there. The mind has left the body. So what we want to now do is bring the mind back. But we want to bring the mind back to Satogun. So when we bring the mind back to Satogun, we want to focus. So yesterday we had different places to focus. Today we have other places to focus. We want to focus the mind on the belly button. Yes? So we're going to still do Simran. Wah, Guru, Wah, Guru. We're still going to speak with the mouth. We're still going to listen with the ears. But our focus, our dhyan, is going to be on Satogun, which is the belly button. So we're going to try this for a moment, and we'll show what happens afterwards. So Karloshu, just for a small time. Wah, Guru, 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 Why, 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 Guru, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So, like Auntie Ji, you asked earlier, When do I know my Simran's gone inside? When do I know my Simran stopped? So Bhai Sahib mentions, do Simran loud, then slowly go Antargat. Once your Simran stops, hold your dhyan on your belly button, and slowly you start to hear the Shabads. So this is what we just done. We did Simran loud because we realized when Tamagun, wah, gru, wah, gru, wah, gru. Body will naturally become quiet by itself. No, body, as the Shabad starts to go from outside, hearing it outside in this space, to inside, wah, gru, wah, gru, wah, gru. It'll go even slower. Wah, gru, wah, gru. Go even slower. Antargat now, you're hearing it with your internal voice, internal ears are all doing Simran now. Now that that's happening, that's when it's gone from outside, inside. Simran stopped. And now your dhyan, you just leave the dhyan on the belly button. Now the dhyan you hold on the belly button, holy, 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 by itself, the dhyan will slowly move up, 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 up. And it'll go past the Tirkutti to Mokti Hut. Slowly it'll come up to this point and above. And when it goes above, what's the condition of that? We'll talk about that as well. The condition of the body will change, the condition of the mind will change, the jukti you use will change. Yeah? So remember, we're doing all this Simran to control our mind. So we've gone from loud Simran to whispering Simran to Antargat Simran to holding dhyan, to then being home, slowly moving out of the body. So this was the story that Bhai Sahib was telling today. But Maharaj Kripa, we had similar slides, so we're quite lucky. So here, what you'll see is what we're going to add to the Jugti is one more thing from Guru Nanak Dev Ji, where he says, Har jio gofa andar rakke vaja pavan bajave. So that belly button, that Satogun is so important because as you're breathing, you want to use your belly button as a vajja. As we press the vajja, wah, gru, wah, gru. We want to move our belly button in and belly button out. In, out, in, out. And what does this do? Slowly pushes the air up, pushes your dhyan up past the Tirkutti. This here, Tirkutti, is a lock made of air. That air gets unlocked through Simran. Yeah? So we're going to make a little brief adjustment to how we're doing Simran. Now that we know what the belly button is, now we know what Satogun is, now we're going to do the Jugti, as Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, Vajja, Pavan, Vajave. So again, before we do it, we're going to relax the body. We're going to before we even start the Simran, put your focus on your belly button. And then when you say why, breathe in, but pull your belly button in very slow, like 2 centimeters in. Not enough to hurt you, just tiny bit. Why? Belly button in, guru, belly button out. Why? Belly button in, guru, belly button out. Okay? So we're going to try this little adjustment to the Jugti. We're going to add this to it. And what we're doing is slowly bringing Porn up through our Sukham Nadi. Straight Sukhmana Nadi, sorry, and bringing our Surti up. Our Surti is the moving mind. So let's start this, and then we're going to talk about Mokti Hut. Kar lo shuru. Why, Guru, 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 Vai, 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 Guru, Khalsa, Vai Guru Ji Ki Fateh. So we have to zoom back out again slightly. Can you remember we said, Rajagun, Tamagun, Satagun Ke, Teri Sab Maya. If all of this is Maya, I can't remain here. I must move. I must leave. So if I'm leaving and I'm using this Jukti to slowly get my Surti, the moving mind, from Satagun to Mokti Hut, when I get to Mokti Hut, which is above the Turkutti, above this, what do I see and experience there? So the natural state in Mokti Hut is empty, black, void, nothing. There's nothing there. There's no thoughts, there's no vichar, there's no furne, complete still. There's no simran. No simran's happening there either. You have now detached from the body. So there's no access to the 9 doors, no access, you can't start moving your hands like we do in Satogun, or you can't move around. You're completely detached from the body and all of its senses. So if someone was to walk past you, you'd have no clue. The trap that Maya has also put there is that we have pyar for Maya. So even if we're there, we can sometimes give ourselves a furna. We can actually start thinking about things in life, start thinking about possessions, or start wondering. And inside doing so, we create a dream for ourselves. So we go to that state and we start to dream. Everybody's been to this place. Everybody goes to this place every night. When you go to bed and you go to sleep, the moment that you've gone to sleep and before dreams, there's nothing, that's Mokti Hut. So everyone goes to Mokti Hut, you see it, and there's complete blackness, there's nothing there. You're completely detached from your body, but you're there. A Gurmukh awakens in that state and knows that they're in Mokti Hut. And they listen for the sound of Vaiguru. Well, Manmukh doesn't recognize, and they start to dream. So the trap is, we give ourselves dreams. The opportunity is that when you are there, if you can wake, you can start to hear the Shabbats. These are the Panch Shabbats and Anhad Bani. There are 2 different types of Shabbats you can hear. And you can hear Vaiguru calling you from there. And from there, if Vaiguru wants, he can take you into his Prakash. If he wants, he can leave you in Mokti Hut. But the driver, why do we go there? This is our natural home. Everyone goes there, regardless. A Manmukh goes there without knowing. A Gurmukh practices every day to try to get to that point. So there's a big difference that what Gurmukh awakens has a Jagat Avastha inside Mokti Hut, and a Manmukh doesn't. But we all go to Mokti Hut. It's not something that none of us have experienced. So, like I mentioned, in Mokti Hut, if you start to put your dhyan back onto Pavsagar, you go to Pavsagar. So you put your dhyan, you're in Mokti Hut, you start to have pyar back for Kal, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Hankar, because that's all you know. You put your dhyan there, and you start to see this world again, but in a dream state. You start to see it. You create that out of your pyar for it. And by doing so, you get trapped back into Kal and Maya. So this is what the state that Manmukhs have. But Gurmukhs, if they go to that state and they recognize that actually I'm here at home now and I have the opportunity to meet Sach, they awaken. And inside that awakening stage, they're not doing Simran, they're still. And they're so still that they can hear the sounds inside the body. And there's different sounds that happen inside the body. So remember when we looked at Satagun being down here, and you had the chakras going up? When we do our Vajja, Pavan, Vajave, that air that we're pumping through those chakras, as those chakras vibrate, you'll hear different sounds. That's where the Panch Shabads come. They vibrate through the chakras, and you hear and realize it in Mukti Hut. So the chakras you'll hear the sounds. That's why people hear different sounds. But they're Panch Shabads. Some people call it a flute, the resonance of a gong, a shell being blown, bells, trumpets, rebek, singing cicadas, metal being smashed together. Others have other sounds. But you hear these sounds as the air vibrates through your chakras. Those are Panch Shabads. But also, there's another sound which you can take with you everywhere, called Anhad Bani. You can hear this in Mukti Hut, and you can also bring it into Bhavsagar with you. You can hear it all the time. So this Shabad is the Shabad that takes you all the way back to Sachkhand. But this is a sound that never ends. It's not a hit object where you hit an object and you make a sound. It's an unending sound that you hear forever. And from this state, Mukti Hut, once you've got to that Jagat Avastha, you're aware that you're here now. If Waheguru wants, Waheguru will call you into his darbar, and you'll see Prakash, you'll see Waheguru, and from there you can talk to Sach. So it's very important when we say go back to your home, going back into your home of Mukti Hut is very, very, very important to at least understand that it's there, understand that it's not far away, understand that you've all seen it, you've all experienced it, you just haven't woke up in it. And the reason why we haven't woke up in it is because we're taking too many thoughts. The thoughts are not given by us. The thoughts are furna. Furna is an uncontrolled thought. A vichar is a thought that we take. A furna is a thought that someone else has given us. So we just need to control these furna to a point that we're a bit more silent, a bit more balanced, a bit more still. Once you have these basics in place, you can slowly control the mind, go from outside loud Simran to whispering Simran, to Antargat Simran, to then Dhyan. Slowly. This is called maturity in your Simran. And tomorrow, we're going to look at how do I maintain maturity in my Simran. It's a state called Samdrist, which is how do I stay connected to Sach and also be in Bhavsagar. So I'm in two places at once. You can split the mind. So how do I do that? How do I get that state where I'm Samdrist, where wherever I go, I'm always connected to Sach. So we're going to look at that tomorrow in more detail. But for now that we know that we have a better understanding of how we turn up in two parts, our body, our mind, we also know there's Juktis to bring those two together. We also know that there's the Kale of Satagun, Rajagun, Tamogun. We also know now that there's different energy channels that go through the body, and those energy channels need to be balanced. We know that we need to go down the Sukma Nadi, which is essentially the middle channel, which is Satagun. And we know that we're there when our nostrils, we breathe through them, is balanced. We know we're not there when it's on either side. Yeah? So we now know that all these things exist. We also know Mukti Hut's there. We know why we bring the belly button in when we're doing Simran. We know why the belly button is so important. That itself is Satagun. So now that we know all these things, we'll do a few more minutes of Simran, and then we'll look forward to tomorrow's session. Karloshu. Why? Gru. 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 Why?
Waheguru, 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 Waheguru.
Antargat. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Please forgive us for any mistakes or misrepresentations, mispronunciations of words. We're still learning, we're only students ourselves. So if please forgive us if we offended anyone in any way. Marsh Kirpa, we get a chance to meet again tomorrow and talk about Samdris Vasta. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.